Right now we live in a culture where our phones are constantly filming, okay? And you'll see people doing good deeds. And God says that you get your reward in heaven or you can get your reward on earth because there's a monetary gain from it. When you start getting views on the internet, you start making money from it, right? And so now there's dishonest gain for what people are doing. God is saying, don't let other people see what you're doing. If you're doing something silently, do it silently. Yeah, so today we're doing what's called servant leadership. If you had to guess, anybody, what servant leadership is, what would you say it is? I got this for her last week, but she was not here. You're our star pupil of the week. All right, you're welcome. There you go. I mean, I had everything. That works. All right, back to it. If you had to guess what servant leadership is, what would you say that is? Yeah, okay. All right, so we're going to talk about different leadership styles. This should be fun because a lot of us have terrible bosses, all right? And we're going to dive into it. But first, I want to give you guys a story. So, who knows the story of Captain Swinton? Anybody? It's interesting. Okay, so there's this captain named Captain Swinton who had a mission. The mission was in September 8th, 2009 in Afghanistan. They were supposed to be protecting government officials, all right? And so normally, this should be a pretty standard procedure operation. Unfortunately, things started to go south. So during their mission, they become surrounded across the entire field that they're on, and they're starting to get ambushed. So he hops onto the radio, Captain Swinton, and he calls for a medevac because his team is getting shot. One of the guys got shot in the chest. I think they lost about like 10 people. Now, helicopter gets here, and the guy has a GoPro on his head that was flying the helicopter. And so we can actually visibly see Captain Swinton running into the battlefield, grabbing the wounded soldiers, pulling them to the helicopter, setting them on the helicopter, and he gave them a kiss on the head every time, just in case he didn't know if they were going to die or not. And then he would run back into the battlefield and grab more people. So the question is, what would possess someone to care so much to risk their entire life to run and grab and save people and bring them to safety, right? There are parallels in the Bible that talk about this, but that's a true question. What causes someone to have that kind of leadership, right? So Captain Swinton has a unique gift. He cares about people so much that he's willing to risk his life. Where does that come from? Where in your heart does that come from? That's what we're going to try to break down this week. So in the Bible, David puts it this way, Psalm 78:72. It says, "And David shepherded them with integrity and with heart, with skillful hands, and he led them." So it takes a unique leader to serve the people that he's caring for, right? To shepherd them. And with God, we look at Jesus as that example of what true servant leadership is. So he cared so much about us that he was willing to die on a cross so that we could all be saved. Just like Captain Swinton risked his entire life to bring people back to safety. Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah? There you go. Sounds good. What's up, dude? Welcome. All right, so let's move to the next one. So this week we're talking about servant leadership, leading by example in God's kingdom. So as we start walking with God, we're going to start meeting people along the way. These people are going to need to learn about God. They're going to need to grow. So we need to be able to take time with them and lead in a way that is humble and kind and not angry, right? So we're going to talk about different leadership styles. Like what's the difference between servant leadership, regular leadership, management. We're going to understand what godly leadership is, what qualifies a good leader, and then practical leadership and going from there. So what is the difference, in your opinion, between a manager and a leader? Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes leaders get paid. Okay, and then what do you think the difference between leadership and servant leadership is now that we've kind of seen in that example and story?
Leadership, they just guide you. Servant leadership.
Okay, all right, perfect. So raise your hand if you've ever had a terrible manager. Oh my goodness. Okay, we all have terrible managers. But why are they terrible? Okay, so we are in our workforce and we're really good at our skill, right? We get hired in as a basic laborer or whatever we're doing. And then all of a sudden they're like, this guy's really good. We're going to put him into management. Now, their management training is awful. And they're like, hey, we just need you to tell them to go do this, right? It's less leadership and it's more like, I need to get this done. So we're just going to, they don't care, right? They don't care about the growth of the employee. They don't care how they get the job done. They just care about getting the job done. So if you look here, it says management's focus on overseeing tasks, operations, efficiency. They have a strict adherence to organizational processes. But this doesn't mean that they care, right? Management gets paid whether things are going smoothly or not. They get reprimanded if they're not. So they're just going to focus on making sure that they're hitting each. So let's look at the difference. Now, sometimes you go into a place that you're working and you have good leadership, someone that actually cares or inspires a team. I can give you an example. So I had a boss named Leland, and I will forever remember Leland. So Leland was this like super old guy that was a project manager for a construction company that we were working for. And every time that there was a really hard job, it wasn't like, hey, go do this. He would literally put in like a safety harness. He'd go in the he'd walk every single day to make sure that it was safe before he was like, hey, I'm going to have this person out here. He made sure to care. And then on top of that, he would like foster the person. So if I was wanting to move up in the company, he'd ask, what do you want to do? What are you good at? And he'd start catering to what I was good at and putting me in place so that way I would foster, I would grow, and I would become better in the company. He was actually identifying what the person that he's leading is good at. On top of that, he would always go first. So it says leadership inspires, motivates others towards a shared vision, fostering innovation, empowering team members, and achieving collective success. So, have you guys ever had a good leader when you were working? Yeah, it's rare. It's not something that people have. It's something that's inside of them to help care about the team. Now, there are different types of leadership, right? Sometimes you're put into leadership roles and you still might not know what you're doing, but you're trying, right? But the whole goal is to inspire and motivate others. Now, when we talk about leadership, you see it all throughout the Bible. Moses brought people out of Egypt. They followed him, right? You had the 12 apostles. They followed Jesus. What possessed them to want to follow these people, right? Because they had a common goal of what they wanted to achieve. They believed in that goal, and they were willing to follow someone into that. So now we're back to servant leadership. So the definition is slightly different than regular leadership, right? It says it prioritizes serving and supporting the needs of others, practicing humility, empathy, active listening, and a nature of culture and collaborative growth. Has anyone ever seen servant leadership in their job field? See, this is what we're trying to change, okay? As Christians, we're going to be put into environments, and we can change that environment by how we perceive that environment. We can step up in leadership without being asked. We can step in and help guide others. We can do it outside of work. Like if there's elderly that can't mow our lawn, we could show up. We could be the hands and feet of Jesus. We can help mow that lawn. We can help see what the needs are. We can actively listen. If someone's having a tough day, sometimes just sitting there and being like, I'm here with you. Tell me what you need, right? That's what's going to set up the difference. So we need to focus on serving others and caring for them. And sometimes that doesn't come easy, right? Caring for people is hard, especially when they make it hard. But that's what a good leader does, is we take the bad and we try to turn it into good. So let's look at Matthew. I'm running dry on my throat. Will someone grab me a water? Thank you so much. Matthew 20, 26, and 28, the NIV version. Who wants to read this verse here? Okay, I will read the verse here. I just can't see it from here. All right. So instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. But as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for the ransom of many. There's a lot to unpack in this verse. What do you guys see that stands out to you? Anybody? Okay, I'll pick some stuff out. So, whoever wants to become great, raise your hand if you ever wanted to be successful or, you know, empowered or anything. What is the Bible saying that we need to do to become great? We need to be a servant. What is a servant? Someone that cares for others. Now, the world is going to tell us to be great. You got to get your bag, man. You got to get that money. You got to go out on your own. You got to become successful. And then maybe you can set yourself up to have a family or care for others. The Bible is saying no. To become great in the eyes of God, you need to humble yourself and to care for others. It's weird how much the world will be like, "Hey, do this," and God's like, "Do that." And so we have to be able to identify um, the differences. Why is the world telling us that this over here is wonderful, and God is saying no? Humble yourself, be the hands and feet, wash people's feet, care for others. Why? Right? So let's understand godly leadership. So godly leadership is to set an example to follow. Okay? 1 Peter 5, 1 through 3 says, "To the elders among you, I appeal as a fellow elder." This is Peter talking to the other people in the church. He says, "And a witness of Christ's sufferings, who also will share in the glory to be revealed." Now, this is where it gets good. It says in verse 2, "Be shepherds of God's flock, that under your care," all right, he's talking to us, "under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be, not pursuing dishonest gain." Okay, so you have some people, clearly, that are trying to gain something from caring for others. It says dishonest gain. Now, have you ever had someone that pretends to be your best friend and is trying to, to get close to you, but they really wanted something in return? Sometimes it looks like a relationship. So I'm not saying raise your hand, but have you ever been in a relationship where you think that everything is going great and they really care about you, but then the second that you, there you go, yeah, you give that up, whatever it is that they're looking for, then they're out of your life, right? This is what Peter's trying to say is don't be that person. Be better, right? Care for others in a way that the world hasn't seen. Care for other people and don't be dishonest when you're doing it. If you're going to go mow someone's lawn, don't ask for money. Just go do it. Right now, we live in a culture where our phones are constantly filming, okay? And you'll see people doing good deeds. And God says that you get your reward in heaven or you can get your reward on earth. And he says, don't let your left hand see what your right hand is doing. So, why do you think in our culture right now it's so popular to film ourselves doing good things for others? Because there's a monetary gain from it. When you start getting views on the internet, you start making money from it, right? And so now there's dishonest gain for what people are doing. People like Mr. Beast, perfect example, gives money away like crazy. But how many views is he getting? How much money is he making, right? Yeah, you ain't lying. But as much as we would love for that to happen, right? Or we want to be that, oh, well, let me just set up a tripod and all over here and I'll start praying for people and they'll be able to see it. God is saying, don't let other people see what you're doing. If you're doing something silently, do it silently. If you're going to go hand Ray-Bans to a homeless person, don't tell people you ran Ray-Bans to a homeless person so they can sell it and they can make money, right? Or whatever you're doing. Whatever you're trying to give, don't be that person, right? That's what this whole verse is about. You are entrusted, these things are entrusted to you. So be an example to the flock. Now, why is Jesus always talking about sheep? It seems like it's a common thing, right? Sheep are cool. I'm not going to lie. I actually went to Wool Fest. Anybody else go to Wool Fest? You get to walk around with actual sheep. That was crazy. But you start to see the parallels of how sheep act and how humans act. Sheep are easily doing stupid things. They find themselves on roofs, right? They'll find themselves lost. And God is saying sometimes we find ourselves lost. Sometimes we find ourselves on that roof wondering what we're doing, right? Look at David. He was on a roof and then he started doing stupid stuff, right? There's a parallels to how these animals act. And he's saying that to be a good shepherd, to care for the people that are the sheep of the world, right? Don't do it for dishonest gain. So, I really wish I could read this. All right. Godly leadership exemplify courage. Where does courage come from? Is it something that's built into us? Is it something that we grow into and we start becoming stronger and stronger. Godly leaders lead with courage, fearlessly, stepping forward to face challenges and uncertainties. All right, so if I am a new manager for a company and they're like, hey, we want you to be a leader, we want you to care for others, I'm like, all right, cool. Have you ever had that customer that comes into the store and they're like yelling at your team member? Now, I could just like let it happen and just like not step up, or I can walk in and I can be like, hey, come talk to me instead. If someone messes up and I'm their leader, who's the one that should take the fall for the mess up, right? You want to sacrifice yourself first. Now, a lot of times in today's world, we don't see that in our daily lives. We see, oh, this person messed up, they're fired, let them go. A good leader says, why are they messing up? What caused them? Is there something going on in their life? Is there something that they're not hitting their goals because they're doing something wrong? Is it something that I'm not teaching them? Are they not asking the right questions? Right? We need to lead with courage. I really hate these speakers. All right. Model integrity. They uphold principles of honesty, righteousness, morale, uprightness in actions and decisions. A lot of fancy words. What is integrity? Anybody? We talked about righteousness last week. I had to use Siri. It took me a lot of time to understand that I didn't really understand what it meant to have integrity. Our moral compass is something that God has placed in us. This is good, this is bad, right? When I'm making decisions for a team, I want to do it in a way that doesn't affect their morals. I'm not going to lead them in a bad direction. I'm going to hold my values. And where do I get my values from? We should get our values from the Bible. Does the world always do that? No. Which is why you see bad leaders. You see people being like, oh, well, just go over here, it'll be fine. And then they get killed in the military, right? You'll see people get put on missions and they know that it's going to be the end. And they're like, yeah, go. And they're sending them to their slaughter. We see it in the Bible when David gives that letter to the guy that he cheated on or cheated with his wife, and he sends him out to battle. And he's like, yeah, go. Is that leading with moral integrity? No. But God said this man was after his own heart, right? So it shows that we can all slip up. We can all mess up. All right. Inspire by example. What inspires you? Give me an example of what inspires you. Anything. Children inspire you. Okay. Stephen, what inspires you? Is your truck? I'm just kidding. I don't know. What wakes you up in the morning? What makes you inspired to move throughout your day, to walk with character, to be humble? Like what is that thing? If you can figure out what that thing is, you then can start leading people in that. I like to lean on the cross. Okay. I truly believe that Jesus died for us, that he rose again, and that gives us not like a free pass to sin, but like it gives us the ability to reset our entire lives, to walk in a way that's completely different. If I was a mess up over here, this resets everything and lets me walk with God. Now, my values are placed in this, and it inspires me to share the gospel continuously. You'll find me throughout my day, like it's really weird actually, how often I talk about God. Like it's almost nonstop. My managers know that I'm a Christian. They ask me questions all the time. As I'm going out about my day, when I'm like in these chamber of commerce meetings, I'll notice someone has a cross on. We start talking about it. I'm trying to understand what is people's why. Why do they care? What is their reason for getting up every day? If I can change that, if I can lead them towards the cross, cool. If not, that's okay, right? We all have free choice. But you got to be a visionary. So leaders are visionaries. They see a goal. They know how to get there. They know how to allocate their team in a way that's going to achieve that goal. And so God does the same thing. When Moses was leading people out of Egypt, and they're walking, and all of a sudden there's this giant body of water in front of them. And behind them, you got Egypt chasing them, right? On chariots. And they're going to kill them because they left. Did God say, hey, we should have brought a bow, but we didn't? No, he had a vision. He said, Moses, what's in your hand? And he hit it into the ground, parted the sea. All right? Same thing with Jesus. Had a vision of what he came for. Why did he come? To save the world, right? He could have been like, yeah, Satan offered this. I could have all the kingdoms. I don't have to go here. He didn't have to. But he had a vision of what God needed him to do, and he did it. And so we need to follow Christ's example. So Godly leaderships have a vision of where to go. All right, and so let's look at Matthew chapter 4, verse 19. It says, "Come follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." So who is Jesus talking to here? Anyone know? Well, yes, but Peter is the example on this one. So he was talking to Peter. Peter was on a boat, all right, and Peter was a fisherman by trade. Was he a good fisherman? Not really, but he was a fisherman, okay? And so he's on this boat all night, can't catch a single fish at all. He's struggling. And Jesus is on to the bank of the water, and he's preaching to these people. And he asked Peter, because he had just pulled up, he said, "Hey, can I get on your boat? It would help amplify it." He's like, "Yeah, sure." So Jesus gets on the boat. Okay? Now, Peter's been fishing all night. He's trying to pay off taxes. Like, he's dealing with a lot of problems, and he just needed some fish. And God was like, "Hey, cast your nets to the left." And he's like, "Dude, I've been fishing all night." And he said, "Cast your nets to the left." So he throws his nets down into the water. I mean, it's shallow water. He throws it down. The whole boat starts tipping. All right, all these fish start going into the water. Now, that's a lot of money. So, like, back in the day, fishing provided for the entire family. That's like me walking up and like landing a CEO job. That's what that was. That was how much money was coming into that boat. Now, Peter falls onto his knees. He says he's not worthy. He's not good enough. And Jesus says this. He says, "Come follow me. I'm going to have you fish for people. You're going to start changing hearts." Now, the dude has a whole bunch of money in his boat. What does he do with that boat? He leaves the boat. He says, "I don't need it." What Jesus had was better. That takes some leadership to completely forget what you've known your whole life. That fishing, this is how you provided for your family. You don't know what comes after that. But this person is saying, "Follow me." And he asks that same question to us every day. And the question is, are you going to answer that call? Do you truly believe in your mind, in your heart, that Jesus died for us, that he has a plan for your life? Jeremiah 29 says that he has, hold on, I need it. I think it's Jeremiah 29:10. Fine, I know this one. I should know this. "I have plans to prosper your life." That's what it is. He has plans to prosper your life. Do you believe that? Do you truly believe that that's what he has for your life? Acts 4:32 and 33 say it this way: "All the believers are one in heart and in mind. No one claimed to be any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything that they had." 33, "With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and God's grace was so powerfully at work in them all." Now, if you know where Acts is in the Bible, it's after Jesus died, and they are being persecuted to the point where they're like, "Dude, just say that Jesus didn't resurrect, and like we'll let you live." And they're like, "No, I care more about that and like willing to die for what I believe of what Jesus did." Imagine that kind of faith. I feel like we see it now. We see people being persecuted. You have Christians everywhere that are dying, that are being martyred. And you have to have that kind of crazy faith. And it takes a really godly leader to get you to that point. So you have godly leaders, you have servant leaders, you have leaders, and you have managers. Which one are you going to follow, right? Okay, so another verse, John 10:11-13. Please, someone read it for me.
I am the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he attacks the flock and scatters, the man runs away because he is a hired.
Verse 13. Manager, leader, or servant leader? Manager, right? God is saying that there are people that when trials come their way, when a wolf comes to attack the flock, when the people that are following you are in trouble, they run because they're a hired hand, because they don't really care about their sheep. Now we look at David, who was willing to fight bears and lions to the death for his sheep. And Jesus was willing to die for all of his sheep. And so it makes you want to be a better leader. It really does. When you start seeing how God was, right? We start walking in that same reflection. We start sharing God's light. Have you ever heard that term? We're reflecting God's light. Being a good shepherd means that we watch over our flock. You guys are my flock. In this church, in this lesson, in this plan, every single one of you I care about. I want you to run with God. And I know that problems are going to come your way when you start following God. It's happened to me. multiple times. It's not an easy walk. It's not going to be. But now you have someone that's willing to walk with you because I've been there. If you're dealing with addiction, if you're dealing with heartbreak, if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, whatever it might be, I hate to say it, but I've been through all of that. And it's true. God is willing to use my brokenness to help others. And he's willing to use your brokenness to help others too. And you can be that shepherd that brings people closer to God. So, qualities of a good leader: visionary thinking, integrity, empathy, effective communication, which I'm still working on, and decisiveness. Willing to step out, to think in a way that if these people are following me, am I leading them in a good direction? Do I know where I'm going? If I don't have a plan and I'm like, yeah, follow me, where are we going to end up? Right? You have to think visionarily. You have to care where we're going. What are we leading to? What kind of integrity do you have in your heart? Are you looking for dishonest gain? Are you just trying to gain something from the world? Because if the world is what you're trying to gain, you miss out on what eternal life is, right? Empathy. Do you care about people? If they're talking to you and you're supposed to be that listening ear and they're telling you about your day, or they're telling you about the job, or they're telling you about what's going on in their life, if they're having problems, do you care? Are you willing to step up and be like, I'll walk through this with you? Good leader. Effective communication. All right. How many of y'all have been in a relationship where, or this is good with kids, how's your day? And the kid's like, good. And you're like, okay, great. Tell me about it. It was fine. Like, is that considered effective communication? No. And that's funny because we deal with that every single day. When I'm dealing with my managers and I'm like, hey, why are we doing this? They're like, well, because my boss said. That doesn't motivate me to want to follow them or work on it. It doesn't motivate me to want to like understand how your day is. But we keep asking the questions. Now, if I was like, how was your day? And you're like, dude, it's been a day. All right. So my boss is driving me crazy over here. She's telling me that I got to do this. And I'm actually listening and understanding what you're saying. Effective communication. Now I can give feedback. I'm actually listening. Mom says I have selective hearing. It's true. I'm working on it. All right. But it is what it is. And decisiveness. Makes informed decisions promptly, weighing risks and opportunities. If I'm going to put us in a situation, is it worth it? If it's going to harm us, like my boss, Leland, was like, hey, I'm going to walk these steps first to make sure that it's all safe before I make my team do it. Am I taking the precautions because your lives are at risk too? Your lives are at stake. That's what a good leader does. All right. Practical leadership. I skipped past. All right. Hebrews 13, verse 17. I have confidence in your leaders and submit to their authority because they keep watch over you as those who must have an account. Do this so that their work will be a joy. Do not burden for that which could be no benefit to you. Wow, that was a tongue twister. Okay. Who's talking in this verse? Hebrews. It's Old Testament. All right. The Lord is talking to his people, and he's saying, I have confidence in your leaders. Now, today, in today's world, do we have confidence in the people that are leading us in this country? Do we have confidence in the people who are leading us in this job? No. Right? But God is saying he puts people in place for a reason. Okay? And so we have to walk with confidence that though it might look bleak right now, whatever we're dealing with, whatever the situation is, God has a plan. He has a plan to prosper us. And so we just need to trust that they're not putting us into a burden. Now, we see it both ways. It's a messed up coin that we're dealing with, especially with politics. But when you look at I like to look at things in a smaller picture. In our world, our smaller picture, let's say our church, for example, is our pastor leading us in a good way? Yes, he's very biblically sound. Everything that he talks about, very biblically sound. All right? As we start bringing that into our community, are we sharing that gospel? Are we sharing that joy? Are we trying to take away the burdens of others? That's what he's saying. He might not be talking government officials, but we're leaders in our community. So we got to work on that. It's getting loud here. So last thing, practical steps for you guys. In your family, in your work, and in your community, what can we do to start moving towards helping our family members with their concerns? You said that you were helping your mom last week, right? Good leader. Look at that. And then your kids, they're fun, right? But they're always asking you questions and they're always needing help. You're already doing it. You're already helping guide that family. For me, Richie, he always needs help. The aunts always need help. We're always building stuff onto the house for them. So like we're trying to take little steps to help serve the people around us. Servant leadership. At work, my whole job, which is kind of crazy because like before I hated my job, but I actually get to help people. So I work for a restoration company, and so when people have a fire or water damage or mold, I get to go in the middle of their crisis and put things back. All right, so like I actually get to help them. Um, Dentist, you're taking plaque out of people's teeth. Security, you're making sure people are safe. Welding, right? You're going to be building bridges that people drive on. Everything that you're doing has a purpose. So you need to walk in a way that has that purpose, that's showing that purpose. And the same thing with the community. Engage in the community. Try to go to events. I'm socially antisocial. All right, like if I have to be social, I'll be social. If not, I might just stay at home. But engage in the community. Step out of your comfort zone. God is calling you out of your comfort zone for a reason. And He's going to put you in situations that feel awkward. Be the light in that situation. Grow from it. So, step 1, set an example. All right? Step 2, have a vision. Anything that you're doing, know where you're going. And 3, pay the price. Oh, wait, we're talking about Jesus here. Set an example. Jesus set the perfect example of how to live your life. Jesus showed us how we could live in a way that serves others, that washes the feet of others, that heals the blind and heals the sick. Oh, wait, Jesus had a vision for us of how we could share eternity with Him. All right? And He paid that ultimate price on the cross. I thought these were practical steps for you. No, this is practical steps that you can learn in the Bible that are for you. And you have someone that showed us how to do it, right? If you feel a call to be a leader, be that leader. Nothing's holding you back, right? But it's a choice. Am I going to step out in faith? Am I looking to gain something from it? If you are, your heart's not right. Make the adjustment. Make the prayer. Ask for guidance from God. I can't read any of this. This is terrible. I need to be better at my PowerPoints. Okay. I don't know. We'll see. I think that was it. That's actually the end of it. What do you guys got? Questions? Prayer? I have no clue. I think it was an old game that I had for the youth on there. I don't know, but it just switched back to the other. So, yeah, so we're back. All right, let's close in prayer, guys. God, I thank you for the opportunity to teach today. God, I ask that we were able to touch their hearts, that we were able to show what the difference is between a manager, a leader, a servant leader, and a godly leader. God, I ask that in their communities, in their homes, they are able to serve in a way that honors you. God, that they are able to move in a way that reflects your light. God, I thank you for sending the perfect example of what leadership looks like. And God, I ask that if they have bad leaders, that they are able to step away from them, that they're able to move into a better direction, that you're able to place them. God, you say you have a purpose for our lives, that you have a plan to prosper us. God, I thank you for that. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.